Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, text number 6. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Anartha Pashamam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaje Lokasya Janato Vidvanks Chakre Satvata Samhitam Anartha Pashamam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaje Lokasya Janato Vidvanks Chakre Satvata Samhitam
Anarthopashamam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Adhokshaje Lokasya Janato Vidvanks
Lokasya Janato Vidvanks Chakre Satvata Samhitam
Anartho Pashamam Shakshad
Anartha Pashamam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaje
Lokasya Janato Vidvanks
Lokasya Janato Vidvanks Chakre Satvata Samhitam Anartha Pashamam Sakshad
Bhakti Yogam Adhokshaje
Lokasya Janato Vidvanks Chakre Satvata Samhitam Anartha Pashamam Sakshad Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaje Lokasya Janato Vidvanks Chakre Satvata Samhitam. Radha, you want to try? No? Okay. Anartha, things which are superfluous. Apashamam, mitigation. Sakshad, directly. Bhakti Yogam, the linking process of devotional service. Adhoksaje, unto the transcendence. Lokasya, of the general mass of men. Janantaha, those who are unaware of. Vidvan, the supremely learned. Chakre, compiled. Satvata, in relation with the supreme truth. Samhitam, Vedic literature. Translation: the material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service, but the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Vyasadeva saw the all-perfect personality of Godhead. This statement suggests that the complete unit of the personality of Godhead includes his parts and parcels also. He saw, therefore, his different energies, namely the internal energy, the marginal energy, and the external energy. He also saw his different plenary portions and parts of the plenary portions, namely his different incarnations also. And he specifically observed the unwanted miseries of the conditioned souls who are bewildered by the external energy. That's from the previous verse. And at last he saw the remedial measure for the conditioned souls, namely the process of devotional service. It is a great transcendental science and begins with the process of hearing and chanting the name, fame, glories, etc. of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. But, there's always a but. Even with the prescribed forms of hearing and chanting, there is at once mitigation of the superfluous and unwanted miseries of material existence. Such mitigation of material affection does not wait for the development of transcendental knowledge. Rather, knowledge is dependent on devotional service for the ultimate realization of the supreme truth. I mean, Prabhupada's writing is so exquisite and addressing audiences in the world. He's sitting, composing this Srimad Bhagavatam in a little room. Actually, he began not at Radha Damodar, he began previously. This first canto work began in those little rooms, one little room. I'm just like, Lord. Bangsi Gopal Temple, a little space, bare walls, nothing. No water, no toilet, no kitchen. There was air. And not far away was the Jamuna. But what profound writing. How elegant. Okay, so back to the text. This verse, text number 6, is part of 3 verses, 4, 5, and 6, that one can say the essence of Srimad Bhagavatam is compressed in those 3 verses. This is the third. I chose this one because I recently spoke on the first 2. So the situation with Vyasadeva from the previous chapter 4. Chapter 4. Vyasadeva compiled all the Vedic literature. He saw Kali Yuga is coming. He knew what to do. At least his part. He took the sound form of the Vedas, put it in a written form, divided into 4 divisions, and so forth. The Puranic literatures, Vedanta Sutra, and he was not feeling satisfied. He was feeling dissatisfied. Something. Narada told him why. You haven't sufficiently glorified the Supreme Lord. So to do that, you should, what these verses are describing, you should sit in trance, and that which you realize while in trance, that can be the subject matter of your expanding Bhagavad Purana. So this is what he did. He sat down, did the first verses of this chapter, sipped water, sat in a situation of trance, and he experienced what he experienced. So this verse specifically, Prabhupada is indicating, is describing the mitigating process. The previous 2 verses, he saw Sakshat Bhagavat, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purnam, in its fullness. So Prabhupada is here elaborating that fullness means his different energies, internal, external, marginal. He saw his different expansions. he saw the whole thing. In his trance, he saw the whole thing, everything. And then he saw how the Lord was keeping the illusory energy behind him. Or in other words, we cannot see the Lord because the illusory energy is in front of him or between us and him. So we're seeing the illusory energy, we're not seeing him. But Vyasadeva was able to see that's what's going on with the living entity. They can't see the Lord because the illusory energy is in front of him, but Vyasa saw behind him, under his full control. And then he saw the bewildering influence of that illusory energy, that the Yayasa mohito jiva, moha. This is just review of the previous verse. Moha, complete bewilderment by the force of the illusory energy. And that bewildering influence manifests as Atmanam Trigvanatmakam. Although living entity is of a spiritual nature, the living entity, being bewildered, thinks of himself as not of the spiritual nature, but of the material nature, specifically the three modes of nature. Not like the living entity is thinking, I'm the three modes of nature, but by the influence of the three modes of nature, they're forgetting who they are, and they're thinking falsely some other identity. So he saw the illusion of the living entity. So he, Vyas, naturally being a compassionate person, and the Supreme Lord being a compassionate person, provided the means for the living entity that's bewildered to become free from bewilderment. That's what this verse is. The linking process, the mitigating process. Bhakti yogam adhoksaje. Vocative. To adhoksaja is adhoksaje. Bhakti yogam adhoksaje. Helps to, here comes one of our nice terms in Bhagavad Dharma, is the understanding of the anarthas stage. In anarthas, Rupa Goswami has given us these stages of bhakti. And after the practice, bhajana kriya, practice of bhakti, what happens is the anarthas are slowly, too slowly usually, but slowly the influence is diminished. So, anartho pashamam sakshad, eventually becomes completely sakshad by the direct influence of the personality of Godhead. Anartha, those things which are superfluous. Upashamam, mitigation. Sakshad, directly. So it's like where there's darkness, you shine light, and the darkness is dispelled directly. What is darkness? It's the absence of light. You shine light, the absence of light is dismissed by light. Similarly, Bhakti Yoga is the linking process or the mitigating process for the illusion or delusion or the bewilderment of the living entities who think falsely who they are. And in that deluded, falsely thinking stage, they don't see who they really are. They don't see the personality of Godhead. They don't see lots of things. And that's material life. And people go on with material life like that's life. Seeking happiness where there's no happiness, feeling frustrated, etc., etc., etc. So Vyasa saw all that, and he saw the mitigating process in this trance of meditation. Bhakti yogam adhoksaje lokasya general mass of people, loka, asya, in relation to loka, in relation to this world, people within this world, janata, they're unaware of their deluded position. They're feeling things, but they don't understand those feelings, and the things that they're feeling are a manifestation of the illusory potency. They don't know that. Janato. But there are those that are aware, the vidvanks, the learned person. So such a learned person, Vyas, vidvanks, chakre satvata samhita. He compiled the Vedic literature. Now Vyasadeva is composing this. It's like an autobiography of what he did, but he's speaking as if it wasn't him, it was Vyas did this. Chakre, satvata, in relation to sat, in relation to the absolute truth, he composed or compiled the Vedic literature. Now in the purport, Prabhupada speaks about this mitigating process, that the mitigating process has at its heart two things: the hearing and mercy. And his emphasis in the purport, it's not merely the hearing. I'll read. Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. Wait a minute. I thought the Bhakti Yoga process is not different than the Lord. The subject matter in Hari Katha or Krishna Katha or Bhagavad Katha, the subject matter is not different than the Lord. So why not the process of hearing that which is not different than the Lord doesn't do the trick? That in itself should do the trick, because non-different. And though the emphasis that Prabhupada is making is, even within that sound vibration of Hari Katha or Krishna Katha or Bhagavad Katha, there's the mercy feature. And the sound vibration or the personality of Godhead or the name or any other entity that's non-different than Krishna is looking to see our sincerity, or how eager are we to restore our relationship. In other words, mercy is required, and mercy is prompted by a sustained, sincere effort to make that connection. And therefore, prayer is a very natural part of the bhakti process. It's a calling, as the Hare Krishna mantra is not a mechanical process. It's a calling, and the consciousness behind the calling is all important. The consciousness of, please accept me, or please pick me up, or please show your mercy. The quality of our hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, speaking Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting the holy name, hearing the holy name, the consciousness behind the activity is of utmost importance, because it brings the prompt from Krishna's side to give himself, to show himself, to reveal himself, as happened with Vyas. I'll just read it again, it's very nice. Revival of the dormant affection or love of Godhead does not depend on the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but it solely and wholly depends on the causeless mercy of the Lord. When the Lord is fully satisfied with sincere efforts of the devotee, he may endow him with his loving transcendental service. There are these statements found in the Vedas, and then devotional service begins. You know what I'm referring to? And then devotional service, when engaged in devotional service and something happens, and then devotional service begins. So what was that before the devotional service began? What was that? It's preliminary. It's abhas bhakti, and then there's bhakti, because bhakti is shuddha. So shuddha bhakti isn't lost when we're not shuddha bhaktas. It's just we're not experiencing shuddha bhakti. We're experiencing abhas bhakti. That's nice. Abhas bhakti is very nice. It cleanses. It grants freedom from the reactions of our past misdeeds, at least the category of sins. Abhas bhakti is very powerful. But Shuddha bhakti is beyond that. And then devotional service begins, means pure devotional service. Unfiltered, unmixed, no clouds, no obstructions. Direct experience of the personality of Godhead. Not that he has to stand before us or dance before us or show his form or something, but the direct experience of the presence of Krishna through the medium of his name or his messages, the reciprocation that one is then bestowed, that is bestowed upon one by Krishna when he sees, what's he looking for? He's looking for our sincere interest. So what happens in life generally is there's a sine curve. Their interest goes up and down. And one of the things that causes the interest to go up, one of the reasons, is something hurts. So we call out to Krishna, help. So 4 types of pious people render service. But steady, whereas beyond, the ups and downs, is steady. And when devotional service is steady, that is whether that there's the experience of duality in this way or that way. Misfortune, good fortune. Regardless of the circumstance, the principal motivator for the devotee is to connect with the relationship with Krishna, our constitutional position. So that's therefore generally the bhakti process is gradual, but despite the gradual, there's a science to it. And if we understand the science and we have faith in the science and the teaching and the teachers and the process, then the linking method, upashanam, the linking method becomes fruitful. So Vyasadeva understood all this, and on that basis he compiled this Srimad Bhagavatam, Chakre Sattvata Samhitam. Of course, I'll just quickly read the next verse. I'm going to end. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, Yasyam Vaishutamanayam Krishne Paramapurushe. The feeling of loving devotional service for Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhaktir Utpajyate Pungsang. The feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna at once sprouts up to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. When light goes on, darkness is dispelled. So there's a progression in the bhakti process. Fortunately or unfortunately, we would like it to be more quick. It's as fast as we want it to be, and Krishna will see how much we want it to be, and do we have the right purpose in mind? Do we want liberation, or do we want our relationship? In other words, and if as that orientation towards reconnecting again with Krishna becomes our life, our motivator, our focus, it can be more quick. But fearfulness, lamentation, and illusion are dissipated. Darkness is dissipated by light. So these features of fearfulness, lamentation, illusion, they're manifestations of long-standing, many lifetimes duration, turning our attention away from Krishna program. Now here we are trying to restore our original consciousness, and there's conditioned tendencies in the other direction, and we're pushing and we're being pulled by our conditioning. But the Bhagavatam is the medicine to cure that tendency or that disease or that conditioning. Narto Parshamam Sakshad Bhakti Yoga Madhoksaje Lokasya Janato Vidvangs Chakre Satvata Samhitam. So that's our morning discussion. Very important verse. These three verses, or add on the next verse, number 7, 4, 5, 6, and 7, they're referred to many times from different angles of vision by Jiva Goswami and his Sandarbhas because of their importance, their fundamental importance. There are other sets of verses that are like that in the Bhagavatam, but this is one of them. It's the basis of his rewrite, his recomposing or expanding Bhagavad Purana from what was not so satisfying to now he became fully satisfied by the grace of Narada. And as a result, we have Srimad Bhagavatam. And by the mercy of our founder Acharya's beautiful exposition to help us enter into the message of Srimad Bhagavatam is there. What a gift to this world. Especially in this dark age of Kali. What a gift. So let's see if there's some discussion.
Krishna Maharaj. I have a question and a comment. The comment first. So in the 7th verse, when the verse is referring to the process of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Yasyam Vai Shruya Maranam. So that process of hearing itself is bhakti. And then, as you said, bhakti rutpadyate punsam, it leads to generation of bhakti, and that bhakti is referred to as the feeling for
Loving
the
service.
Supreme Lord. So it seems like in the same verse, the bhakti is in one sense encompassing the hearing process. There is a process, and then that process is leading to the bhakti, which is a feeling for the Supreme Lord. In other words, love for the Supreme Lord. That's what I'm understanding in that same.
Well, so you're making an observation.
The comment. Yeah.
Okay. It's just a comment on your comment. There's not a contradiction. You're not saying it is. I'm just making the remark. It's not a contradiction. There's stages of the unfolding. Supposing there's a slow motion photography of a flower starting from a seed and sprouting and becoming a plant and then becoming a little bud and then becoming a full flower. They're just different stages of the same entity, from seed to maturity. Go ahead.
Now this leads to the question that without actually having the sincerity within the heart, the hearing and chanting, they're considered mechanical. And that mechanical process is not going to help.
No, it will help.
Abhas.
Yeah. You have to start somewhere. Supposing the feeling isn't there yet. It's mechanical. It's insufficient. The good news is, feelings are there, they're just dormant. Like within a seed, there's life, but it's dormant. So when will that day come when our feelings become more prominent? It's insufficient on itself. Mechanical is insufficient.
So how can we be sure that we are sincere in our pursuit of hearing and chanting?
Well, Prabhupada's answer to that is everybody knows what sincere means. You've heard that answer. So there's the behavior, and then there's the consciousness behind the behavior, or what is the intention behind the behavior? The behavior shows there's something. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the behavior. Part of the something might be, I want adoration, fame, and distinction. So I'm doing this because I'll get it. So that's not sincere. There's a behavior that's not sincere. Then it won't endure. And then their thorns will come instead of fruits and flowers. So an indication of the sincerity is a consistency in loving feelings, awakening and a consistency in loving feelings. And another indication is when there's something that goes against, there's an obstacle, or there's some harsh treatment, or there's some misfortune, it doesn't stop. That's an indication of sincerity. The plant still continues to grow towards the sunlight. Despite duality. Here's another way, saying the same thing in another way. Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasadeva saying, we're saying to Krishna, please accept me, by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And Krishna hears that chanting, and Krishna is asking the question, not that he doesn't know, are you sincere? Do you really want me? How about some sense gratification? Prabhupada raising his hand, looking the other way. No. I only want you. Oh, maybe he or she does want me. What about some obstacle? Some difficulty? Let the obstacle come. I simply want you. Oh, they're sincere. So it's a pleasure and some pain. And when one continues despite the duality, then let me give myself to them. So his Prabhupada's way of saying, when he was speaking like that, Krishna is examining our sincerity. Not that he doesn't know, but to say examining means he's bringing out the exhibition of that which is sincere. And the exhibition of sincerity, which is your question, is despite duality, we persevere. Now, in the beginning, in the earlier stages, there's not always, sincerity muscle isn't fully matured. And so there's conditions. We feel discouraged, and we feel enthused, and we feel something, because the motivation is not fully sincere. There's some sincerity, otherwise we wouldn't be doing even the mechanical. But maturity, sincerity as it matures, that there's no obstacle that can stop. Ahaitukiya pratiyata. Nothing can start it, nothing can stop it. That's sincerity. And then there's the immature stage. And then becomes the mature stage. So, as everything, there's gradations of sincerity, there's gradations of bhakti, there's gradations of everything. Gradations of light and darkness. So we want to exercise our sincerity muscle. And so that means we go revisit it again and again and again. So what's my purpose? What am I doing here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And so that's the introspection of a Vaishnava or a sage. Anything else? Radha.
Can we listen to non-Krishna conscious songs?
Can you do what?
Listen to non-Krishna conscious music.
Depends. I mean, you certainly can. However, what's the purpose? And if there can be a Krishna conscious purpose, and there can be a sense enjoyment purpose.
Like, everyone is talking about something, and let's say I want to know about it, so let's say they're talking about some song, and so I listen to it.
Well, it depends on your consciousness besides curiosity. You follow? Supposing somebody becomes a master musician and they become aware of another music style or another melody or another approach or something, and is this something that I could use in service to Krishna? So they go there. Is it usable in Krishna service? Not just am I attracted or not so attracted, or I find it disgusting. It's not about me. It's about service to Krishna. And if there is behind that listening to other, I won't name names, but there are some persons that like classical music. They like classical music because it inspires them in godly sentiments. The composers had godly sentiments, and when you listen to in a certain way, it's not just, oh, isn't that soothing? It's awakening of godly sentiments. So they find that enriches their God consciousness. Now, that can be an excuse. You know what I mean? Cheating, saying and doing are different. It can be easily. But your question was, is it okay? And it depends on the consciousness behind it. Curiosity, there's a saying, curiosity killed the cat. You've heard that one. So,
Can I elaborate on it?
yeah, sure.
I think her question is coming from her current stage of her development to fit into, like, even in the devotee friend circle, they may be discussing, have you heard this song? And I say, oh, I have not heard. So she feels sort of
Left out,
yeah,
isolated.
I think that's where the question is coming from.
Well, then the answer doesn't change. If it's just, I want to be accepted by my circle of friends because they like fill in the blank, and I want to be accepted, so I feel I need to know about that which they like, just so I can be part of that circle. But supposing it has nothing to do with how you, as you're obviously a musically inclined young person, so will it enrich my devotional life? Or is it all about pure acceptance? What's going on here? And if it's just about pure acceptance, then you got sucker punched. You know what I mean by that, right? Yeah.
Well, let's say I like the song, then let's say I like pop music or something like that, then should I listen to it or not? Because I feel like in Krishna consciousness, a lot of my devotee friends do listen to it, so I don't know whether it's okay or not.
I got your
Yeah.
yeah. Generally speaking, it's sense gratification. Generally speaking, I'm in a devotee family. I'm young and I'm in a devotee family, and my eyes are going over here. It's not just music; it's other stuff. Without listing other tantalizing attractions. without, music is one, and there's many, the whole range of all the senses and objects of the senses, and indulging in them out of curiosity and finding something. Hey, check this out. And then it becomes check that out. And then it becomes check the other thing out. And then, all doors are open and one starts to fall. So it's not that has to happen, but that's where it leads. You however many steps you take in that direction, you go away from, the gift that you as they and you as devotees have been given. You've been given a gift, and now how are you going to use that gift? So you don't have to be stoic and, whatever, an extremist, but you have to have your hands on the steering wheel and a brake pedal and a gas pedal. You have to be in control of your life. And if you don't, because I want acceptance, it'll dilute everything. I mean, not only your music interests, but it leads to other things and other things. It's just concentric circles going out. Prabhupada spoke about it this way. He was specifically speaking to his Western disciples, boys and girls. He said, you have a tendency to flirt with Maya. It's like going out on a branch, and how far can you go before you hear the branch start to crack and then you run back to the trunk? Very dangerous. He said, don't do that. He was just explicitly advising, seeing the behavior of his disciples. So, you can be, he's loving. He wanted to give the gift of Krishna Bhakti, and he wasn't narrow. He knew very well what, for example, what the young devotees that went to England and developed friendship with the Beatles and what that meant. He knew what that meant. It's like Mega Maya. But, they were protected because they had that connection with Prabhupada, and their mission was clear. As musically, I'll just, because music is the topic and it leads to other things. I didn't have much association with Jamuna, but a few times towards the end of her life, this circumstance, and we were together at a japa retreat and other things. So she shared on two occasions an exchange with George Harrison. He liked her singing. You've heard me say this one. No? He liked her singing. So he said to her, if you like, I can make you famous. You've not heard me say this one? Okay, here we go. If you like, I can make you famous. I know how to do it. Your voice is the kind of voice that easily make you famous. I can help you do that. I know how to do it. He was serious, sincere and serious about the offer. He knew that field. And she said, let me think about it. She came back a few days later and she told me and said, no thanks. I don't want that lifestyle, a famous person lifestyle. I just want to sing for Krishna. He said, okay, then let's do this. Let's go to the recording studio and make a recording for Krishna. She said, yes, let's do that. So they made 2 recordings. In those days, it was vinyl records, 45 RPM, smaller size instead of 78. There's a small size. And one side was the Govinda song, and the other side was the Hare Krishna mantra song. And it became a top-selling song in Europe for 3 months or something like that. Best-selling on Apple Records. Hare Krishna mantra. And that popularized the Hare Krishna mantra by her choice to just, sing for Krishna. And the other side is we're still doing it in our temples every morning all over the world. the other side of that 45. And he did all the musical orchestration. He knew how to do it. He was the bass player, but he also orchestrated all the other instruments. And it's beautiful. And her voice is at the center. He did what he said he would do. But he didn't make her famous. He just made her spiritually enriched. But because she made that choice. He could easily have gone, in another direction. No, and if you become famous Hare Krishna singer, you can promote Krishna consciousness. One could give that argument. That's what Prabhupada said to George Harrison. No, I don't know. I was told this by Mukunda Maharaj, who was there at the time. George wanted to become Prabhupada's disciple. Prabhupada said, no, better you just become famous and make people aware of Krishna that way. Not become famous, but make people become aware of Krishna that way, by that fame. Now, exactly what Prabhupada was thinking and intending, and that's what he was said, and that's what happened, and that's what he did. He made Krishna famous. He made Krishna famous in the world by his devotion to Krishna without being an initiated devotee. And how that could have been a hindrance, I don't know. But he knew the world and he wasn't contaminated by it. That is to say, he had sufficient faith in mantra and the purpose behind the mantra. Then his later music conveyed that. My sweet Lord, etc. Hallelujah. So it's slippery slope. It's a little risky being in that world of fame. Generally, people become contaminated by the fame and the wealth and everything. But aside from the risk, for you at your stage, you're not likely going to become a famous person. That's okay. You're making choices, and as you're making choices, that one thing leads to the next thing. So be careful in making choices, because the intention may not be I'm going to go into la la land and become dumb, and forget the core that has been given to me, the opportunity that's been given to me. But there's still choices, and choices lead to other choices. So don't go out of the limb and wait till the cracking sound, and then you run back for the trunk. Easy to say, it's another thing to do, especially when you're young and making choices and have friends that are making different choices. So here's one. If you stay steady with what I'm suggesting to do and to not do, at some point in time, if you do that, at some point in time, the branch is going to break. And they're going to come to the person who didn't go out on the branch and have it crack. And they'll appeal. They'll share and they'll appeal. And then you have a position of being connected to be in service to Krishna in that person, to bring Krishna into their life again, because they went too far. Now some people won't come back and say, help, I fell off the tree. But that's unfortunate, but it's their life and their responsibility. Making wise choices at this stage will help you continue to make wise choices in later stages of life. Not a guarantee, but it will help you make wise choices later on in your life. Like Juna, she's like a sterling example. She made wise choices, and look what happened in her life as she went on. one time that I was visiting in Seattle, and we were, I forget exactly how it happened. I think we went for a japa retreat at Sharanagati Farm. And then one evening we went to her home. She was giving her association to 4 or 5 teenage girls who lived in that Sharanagati community. And, we went, a group of us. And she was a fun person. She with abandon, she started singing soul music. I mean, melodies like soul music, but singing Hare Krishna. And she was, rocking back and forth, and then she started getting up and dancing and, hallelujah. She was moved by a different style than our style, but there was one thing in that style that moved her. The genuine emotion of persons who want to glorify the Lord. I can't remember the detail. I just remember the humor of the situation. But it was spontaneous. She knew other than, the middle of the road, but she was moved by the mood, even in the middle of the road, the style of bhajan, etc. One of the things that she did is, with these girls, she gave a whole, it's a 1 year long, it's for some duration of time, seminar on Vaishnava bhajans, the meaning and the feeling. And they sang, they learned them, and it's still with many of those girls that are now young women. By her association. She gave her association through her devotion. But the point I'm making is different styles, fine, but the essence was what she carried and conveyed. So you can be an instrument like that too. You don't have to. You make choices, but you can. She's a great role model for that. And, she's her and you're you, and we're all different. But there's some principles involved in her life that someone that has a musical inclination, as you do, can learn from. You can just feel close to her, look up to her, and feel protected by her love for Prabhupada. That was everything. And Prabhupada loved her. And, we know where she is. Wherever Prabhupada is, that's where she is. Something else?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. In continuation with the same question that Radha asked, some kids have a certain psychophysical nature which makes them inclined towards music, and they're inspired to make their career in music itself. So, and being in the United States, most of the music it's Western classical or Western related. So how do we guide such kids in terms of we have been providing the in kind of atmosphere and where they can nurture their spiritual journey. At the same time, they have aspirations or they are inspired to make their career in kind of Western classical music or trying to make some career in music field. So I'm trying to understand, how do we guide, or do we say, what do we
Depends.
tell them?
My standard answer for a question like that is it depends. It depends on you, it depends on the individual, depends on the circumstances. And, so it depends. What to do, it depends. But there's a couple of principles that come to mind. You've just seen one of them, and that is a mentor, an inspirational person. So there may not be an inspirational person to model that is physically proximate. But there are devotee musicians. Badahari is an example. So a young person who wants to go in that direction, he wanted to go in that direction. He went in a slightly different direction, but music is in his life. So now he didn't make a living as a career in music, but he was prepared to do that. He was equipped to do that. He was on the road to do that. And he found something more meaningful. But somebody like him or somebody like him can be, accessed if they're willing, if Badahari or somebody else that he has, after hearing about the individual and their interests, etc., he may say, here's 6 other people. And so a mentor, here's things to do, here's things to watch out for, etc. And the other principle is just fan the spark. The Bhakti spark, whatever is there. And now there's a career direction. So fan the Bhakti spark means also be cautious about XYZ and fan the spark. Not too much. Fanning is, a little bit. Not too much, not too little, but a little bit. Fanning. And so, because you can put out the flame just by fanning too hard. So, a little bit. It may increase a little bit, may decrease a little bit, but so those are 2 things. Because you don't know about a music career. So, but there are people that do. There are devotees that do. And there may be somebody that devotee knows that's not a devotee, but is sympathetic to a life of devotion. So you go to somebody that knows. It's just like, a teacher in the Vedic system. Supposing a teacher has as one of his students somebody that has an interest in X. That's what happened with Drona. He sent him to a teacher that knew how to teach them military skills, because he didn't have that. Many Vedic teachers have a vast range of things they can teach. And if there's some field, then they give the basics, the core, the fundamentals of character, and then they send them to somebody else to develop some particular skill. Or if they can't do that, sufficiently themselves. So you're not a musician, you don't have a music profession, but they're devotees that have the core, and they have that. So that's an option. When the core is there, then my experience is the young person makes wise choices because the core is there. And if the core is not there, and there's not wholesome association, then they can get lost. It's slowly or quickly they can get lost. But the core hasn't been lost. The core is just covered, and that's part of what happens in life. Parenting has its limits. You can't live the life that you want your child to live. That's part of love. There's freedom, at the same time there's boundaries. And that, the core is the relationship of love between those who are giving love and those that are being the recipients of love. So the protection is natural, and growth is also natural. I can give examples, but that's not really essential. There's some very wholesome young people that have been given lots of freedom because their core is very strong. They have good friends. They select good friends, and they know persons not to select as friends because, they're not wholesome. They just select wholesome friends. And then their talents and abilities just grow. Something else?
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Aside from Badahari, what's
Janavi Hari.
she knows other types of music, but she's a possibility. Depends on gender. But the devotee in Potomac, who's
Gauravani.
Gauravani, is another example. No, he's gone into music in different styles, etc. But his core is very clear. Okay, we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you.
There were 2 questions online though.
Oh, go ahead. Yes, 2 questions online.
All right, so bringing up the chat. Okay, so this is from the Boston congregation.
From the whom?
From the Boston congregation, from Manu Dave. He's asking how to pray to Krishna when we are oppressed by fear, doubt, and struggling.
We spoke about this in our classes last night in Brandeis and before that. So, how to? That's a big topic. And could you refer him to the recordings of those classes, since it's such a big topic? The principles are you're not that emotion. This is Sankhya, or philosophy. So it's not just we're meant to be philosophers, but a step in the direction of dealing with such emotions is there's the mind, and on the mind is like a screen, and on the screen there's some display of something, and there's some emotion connected to that which is on the screen. And then you're the observer of the screen, you're the observer of the display, you're the observer of the emotions, and you're not any one of them. Detachment through knowledge of who you are. The problem when there's strong emotion is that it grips and it takes over. But detachment is a step in the direction of, it's not who I am. Okay, I conceptually accept that's not who I am. However, I'm feeling these feelings and they're gripping me. Now what should I do? Ideal directionally is act from the platform of who you are. Although this is going on within my mind, this emotion, and I'm being gripped by the emotion, and okay, that's not who I am, but it's gripping me. So now act from, make some choices, and make the choices, ideal choices to make is act from the platform of who you are. So as not only I'm spirit soul, but I am by design. Souls are meant for service to Krishna. So let me turn my attention. Let me turn my attention to my service to Krishna. What that is you're turning on. You have a dimmer switch, and you're turning a little bit of light on. And as the light goes on, the darkness is dispelled. And you keep going because you know that's the direction to go in. Then let me act in the position of who I am. In my position of who I am is I'm Krishna's servant, and 1, 2, 3, here are services that are according to scripture, they're recommended for me, or they're according to my nature. Let's go, because we had this discussion a moment ago about music. So sit down with your music instrument and sing. Some people do that. I'm feeling something. So sit down. Not only when you feel that, but when you feel that, sit down and chant some of your favorite melodies, or chant certain bhajans that speak to what you're feeling, and enter it with some feeling. And that is to say, you're turning the light on. You're connecting to who you are instead of the emotion of who you aren't. Do something in the spiritual, devotional realm that's meaningful to you. Little light goes on, and you're able to see with more detachment that emotion that was gripping you before. And then with that detachment, your intelligence is stronger, and then you can make some kind of if need be, a strategy of how to deal with whatever it is that was causing that emotion. There may be nothing you can do about it because it is what it is. The sky fell on your head. So what do you do? So you make some choices based upon what your options are. And then so your Krishna connection is being restored. That's the point. So there's steps to take in that direction. And then when it's not the sky's falling on your head, make sure that, tomorrow you're making your Krishna connection strong. This question is similar to Maharaj Parikshit's question when he's going to die in 7 days. So what's my duty? What is that subject matter I should hear, chant, and remember? So you read Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, and you'll have an answer to your question. Something will happen. What will happen is you'll start to feel differently about whatever the circumstance that you're feeling unhappy or distressed or fearful about today. You're going in that direction by regularly hearing and immersing yourself in Srimad Bhagavatam's message. Next.
Another question from Ankit Purohit. Hare Krishna Maharaj. In the beginning, it is very difficult to write a gratitude journal. What is the preliminary thing to develop while expressing our gratitude?
Don't be cosmetic, or just express really what's going on. So really what's going on may be lots of words of humility. That's okay. Express that. And then there are persons who helped you understand that, like our founder Acharya. So you express to our founder Acharya your gratitude for helping me get a realization about the reasons why I should be humble. And whatever it is. So let it come from wherever you are, and you write that. Even it may be expressions of humility. That's just fine. Ineptitude, insufficiency, and disqualification or something. But then those lights were turned on by somebody. That's part of gratitude. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Prabhupada Ki Jai.